The 227 officers and men of the 8th Southern Infantry Company were watching the battle develop ashore as they waited to disembark from their troop ship, land on shore and go into fight. 160 members of the 7th South Mounted Rifle Squadron were still cooling their heels in Egypt. For the narrow beach and steep hills of Gallipoli were no place for men on horseback. They would land a month later as infantry. Gallipoli was to be a quick campaign, designed to knock Turkey out of the war and bring the First World War to a swift conclusion by encircling the Central Powers. Edmund Bowler of Gore was the beach landing officer on the 25th of April 1915, and he was thus the first member of the New Zealand forces to step ashore at what would become ANZAC Cove. Before the battle, he wrote to his wife, a tender farewell, simply and beautifully written, as men can only write when they face the prospect of death. 16th of April 1915. I may not have another chance of writing you before we start off on our great venture. We're waiting here, making final preparations and getting up the last of our troops, so it cannot be more than a day or two before we go. I told you in my last letter that I was to have an important forward position which would necessitate my landing early, and I naturally feel proud that the General should have so great confidence in me. It involves, no doubt, very great danger. In fact, the chances of my coming outward safe and sound are probably very small. As landing, as we do at dawn or early morning, we may expect to meet a very heavy fire from the enemy. So, my darling one, I write to you as one who may be holding communion for the last time on this earth with the dear wife who has shared his joys and horrors for so many years. I may not have been all to you that I should have been. I feel that many times I have come short of those expressions of love which would have told you so much. But you know I am reticent and halting in my ways, diffident about showing my real feelings. Now, as I stand on the possible brink of the hereafter, I wish you to know how much I love you and how much I recognise your love for me. You will have our dear girls of whom any father and mother may be proud. And then, if I fall, think of the great cause in which I have fallen. I know that my action will be a source of pride to you. I feel no fear now, but one cannot tell till the real thing is met how one will come through the ordeal of facing death bravely. By casting the fear of death aside and having but one thought, that of duty. Our nation cannot afford that we should fall in this history-making episode of this terrible war. Bowler approached the shores of Gallipoli with the 3rd Australian Brigade at about 4 o'clock in the morning. They made that first landing, moving off the beach at 4:30 a.m. to clear the ridges of the Turkish defenders. Bowler's account reads thus: Sunday, 4 a.m. Approaching the enemy's coast. Lights of all ships' towers except their stern lights. The moon sets behind us. Dawn approaches. Battleships. Open fire. The landing commences. But we do not see the covering party land. They must be ahead of us. The picket boat comes along. We get into our boats. Batteries open fire on us, and the first introduction to being under fire is the thump of a big shell which does not explode. It's into the sea about 10 yards from us. Shell fire is all around us, but we reach the beach safely, and I at once commence my duties as landing officer. The troops pass through my hands, being at once sent forward to reinforce the covering party. Memory of the day is a blur or a blank. Shells are continually bursting around us, and it is wonderful how few are hit. Very bad. The wounded are coming in hundreds and being transferred from the pier constructed at my landing place, but they are so quiet, not a sound from them. They are heroes, and I feel that my distinction of being the first New Zealander to land is very small compared to the heroism displayed by the men, mostly Australians, who are coming in wounded. It has been a dreadful day and night, but I who flinch from the sight of wounds am on the beach continuously, heavy action on our front and grave anxiety as to our position. If we are beaten back, we're scuppered, as we could never re-embark and we have to fight it out with the Turk on the beach. When morning fully broke on the 25th of April, the New Zealand troop transport ships were actually nearing the Gallipoli Peninsula. Big guns of the Royal Navy ships were pounding Turkish forts at the entrance to the Dardanelles, until the horizon seemed to the troops a mass of smoke and flame. The noise was truly extraordinary. Sharp crack of lighter naval guns, splitting roar of 12-inch guns, and above it all the tremendous reports from the 15-inch naval guns of the battleship Queen Elizabeth. Watching from their troop ships, the New Zealand soldiers felt very sorry for the Turks. It seemed impossible to them that anything could survive such a bombardment. At their morning church parade on the troop ships, as the reverberation of the incessant gunfire pounded their ears, the soldiers found it difficult to hear their padre reading, "In the midst of life, we are of death." From across the water, the bark of the 6-inch naval guns cut across the singing by the soldiers of their favourite hymns. Now, as we now know, far from it being a quick campaign, Gallipoli instead became an 8-month epic of endurance. Aside from the pitched battles of April, May and August, much of the campaign was that battle against terrain, against the elements, and against dysentery, lice and the ever-present Turkish defenders, always above and around the Australians and the New Zealanders at ANZAC. Fred Waite, who was the first New Zealand historian of Gallipoli, noted the ever-present agony of danger, but it was an agony born without misery, although at the height of the Gallipoli campaign, the scent of ANZAC drifted 10 miles out to sea. It's a testament to the strength of character of our volunteer soldiers of 1914 and 15 that they met adversity with determination, with initiative, and even humour. Also at Gallipoli developed a greater shared Turkish and ANZAC story which we commemorate today. During the 24th of May 1915 armistice, where thousands of Turkish and ANZAC dead were buried, a Turkish soldier pointed to the graves. "That's politics," he said. Then he pointed to the dead bodies and said, "That's diplomacy. God pity us poor soldiers." Now, I question the view that New Zealand's national identity was forged in Gallipoli. I think it took a lot longer for us to become an independent nation than that. What I did see and what we experienced last year when we visited Turkey was that on the Turkish victory in 1915 emerged modern Turkey. So if a state was born there, it's the modern Turkish state, with their new national pride born of their desperate defence of Gallipoli. This was epitomised during the battle by Mustafa Kemal, who was the Turkish commander at ANZAC Go. He said to his troops, "It is now our duty to save our country. To seek rest or comfort now is to deprive the nation of its rest and comfort forever." Remember who some of those invaders of Turkish soil were, whom Kemal wished to throw back into the sea. They were New Zealanders, our boys. For the New Zealanders of 1915, Gallipoli taught them respect for their own strength and capabilities when put to the ultimate test. Meanwhile, those at home experienced suffering, a hopeless longing, aching hearts, and a keen sense of loss. Now, the soldiers had learned to fight as individuals and as a team, to carry on despite the loss of their mates, and to support each other during the war, and in the long, uneasy peace which followed. The Southlanders who left in 1914 in their small communities, which had been reformed into military units, later returned home as part of something greater, New Zealand's Great War Effort. Those who never returned are now part of that mass grave which is Gallipoli. There are certain features of the campaign which house our missing dead, and may now therefore remain uniquely Southland. Visit there today, places like Pope's Hill, Daisy Patch, Courtney's Post, Rhododendron Spur, the Apex, they remain Southland sites. And I say the lost bodies of our troops are still being found. Mustafa Kemal well understood this when, as Ataturk, first president of modern Turkey, he said in 1934, "You, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. Having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well." Of course, the First World War did not stop with Gallipoli. New Zealand's bloodier battles were yet to come. The Somme, 100 years ago in 1916, the Scenes, Passchendaele in Belgium in 1917, and Beersheba in the Middle East, and the final battles of 1918, which led to the uneasy end of the First World War in November 1918. 100 years ago, a young officer from Mandeville was in command of New Zealand soldiers who were being sent from Egypt to France to fight on the Somme. As the troopship passed the island of Crete, he noted the never-ending worry which a conscientious officer must face, yet he also welcomed the trust and responsibility. He himself had survived the Gallipoli campaign, and he dared, even in 1916, to look into the future, and wrote that when the war is over, I will go home, and I want to feel that I've done my job honestly, and there I can settle down to building a future for myself and the little girl I hope to share it with. James Harkis did come home with his new wife. They bought a farm and started their family. True peace eluded Harkis, however, for during the Second World War, he was again in command of New Zealanders. 75 years ago this month, his 5th New Zealand Brigade were part of an unsuccessful attempt to defend Greece and Crete against the military might of Nazi Germany. On the night of the 24th of April 1941, 75 years ago, Brigadier Harkis had gathered poppies in the field around the evacuation beach before ensuring that 6,000 Allied troops were safely evacuated by ship from Greece so they could fight again in the defence of Crete. Early the next morning, Harkis wrote that when the chief officer reported ship full, the great captain said, "Open the hatches," and later, "Open the boiler room." Then almost 4 o'clock in the morning, the report came, "All off, beach clear." I could not speak but went to a quiet corner of the bridge to thank God for his goodness. As we tacked off, I looked up and saw the black hills and the darkness above and remembered, this is ANZAC Day, 26 years ago. The Battle of Crete, which followed, was another modern epic, as deadly for both sides as Gallipoli had been. There was also bitter fighting during World War II in North Africa, Italy, and the Pacific. And our experience of war did not end with the defeat of Germany in 1945. 65 years ago today, New Zealanders were fighting during the Korean War. Members of the 16th Field Regiment, Royal New Zealand Artillery, were fighting at Cap Yon in Korea, helping support Commonwealth Brigade against the Chinese division. They were seriously outnumbered, I can tell you. And the first of their number was killed in action 65 years ago. New Zealanders then went on to serve against the communist forces in Malaya, in Malaysia, in the jungles there. And 50 years ago this year, 161 Battery of Royal New Zealand Artillery moved to Nuida, Pok Toi province in South Vietnam during the Vietnam War. And later, 50 years ago this year, they took part in the epic Battle of Long Tan. More recently, New Zealand military personnel and civilians have served overseas on peacekeeping and humanitarian missions in the Sinai, Cambodia, the former Yugoslavia, Somalia, Bougainville, East Timor, the Solomon Islands, Afghanistan, and the list goes on still. This is challenging and dangerous work. As we've commemorated this morning, 20 years ago, 6 members of an International Red Cross field hospital in Novye Atagi, Chechnya, were murdered in their sleep by armed men. Amongst those killed was the New Zealand Red Cross nurse Cheryl Fan, who previously worked in Thailand and Nepal. I wish to leave you today with a quotation from Fredwaite's history of the New Zealanders in Gallipoli, which I consider gives a true meaning to the Gallipoli experience and the decades of war that followed. And I read these words, remember that the veterans, the men of Gallipoli to whom Fredwaite refers, were our bachelor soldiers in 1914-15, young married men who were willing and able to volunteer and go to war. But here is the message they wanted to bring back to New Zealand, and the message I hope we take from today's ceremony. One and all made their willing sacrifices for the common good. And that is the message of ANZAC to the people of New Zealand. Place the interests of the community before the interests of self. Follow in the footsteps of the early pioneers and make New Zealand a sweeter place